Come into this circle of community. Come into this sacred space. Be not tentative, bring your whole self. Bring the joy that makes your heart sing. Bring your kindness and your compassion. Bring also your sorrow and your pain. Bring your brokenness and your disappointments. Spirit of love and mystery, help us to recognize the spark of the divine that resides in each one of us. May we know the joy of wholeness. May we know the joy of being together. I invite you now to light your chalices home as we begin our time together.
As we light our chalice, we share our church covenant. We promise to listen and learn together with compassion, curiosity, and an open mind, engage in creating a warm and welcoming community, work together and beyond our walls to address social and environmental challenges, and with our time, talent, and treasure, support our church and its mission.
Thanks, Alex and Ben. You made it this week. Good morning. I'm Reverend Pam Romancic, and my pronouns are she and hers, and I am blessed to serve the Unitarian Church in Hinsdale, Illinois. We gather virtually as spring begins to make good on her annual promise. Daffodils and crocuses are nodding all around us, and the grass is beginning to get that deep green flow into the edges. Much warmer air calls us to walk and breathe into the fresh air and sunshine. Today's service is about sustainability, about how each and every one of us contribute to the ecosystem, which is the Unitarian Church of Hinsdale. What gifts do you get from this community? What do you give back? Today is the kickoff Sunday for the annual fund pledge drive, and the theme this year is not just bouncing back, but leaping forward. What a statement of trust that the year's pandemic will not stifle our spirit, but inspire us to make an even bigger impact on the world that desperately needs our kindness, compassion, and support for justice. You're going to be getting some communications from the Pledge Committee in the next week, which consists of the Pledge Committee consists of Susan Mooney, Pam Fodor, Megan Griffin, Chris Haney, Darren Howard, Nancy Kranz, Dave Mrazek, Mike Pabian, and Ron Solberg. You'll get a brochure in the mail with a form that can be mailed back in the church, old school, but you also have other options this year, thanks to Bob Daniel Wayman. You can click an electronic form on our website and painlessly fill it in, click a button, and be done. The link to the form will be in the communications that you receive. It'll be also in our news and notes and in the touchstone, and you can find it on the website if you just go there. So UCH has moved into the 21st century. Hooray! And then while you're at it, make sure you put on your calendar April 10th and save that date, because that will be the culminating event where we gather virtually, but celebrate the successful conclusion to this year's pledge drive. Thank you to everyone working so hard to keep UCH strong and sustainable. Now, if you enjoyed today's service and you want to share it with somebody, you can always find our services on the church's YouTube page. So you can revisit ones that you liked or find ones you missed. And you know what? I say this every week, but despite being over a year into the pandemic, the church still has an awful lot going on. We have our regular weekly meditation, wise elder, and breakfast groups, but there's also 2 book clubs meeting, an anniversary committee, and the animal ministry meets today at 11:30, and the building tech team meets today at 1 p.m. So I encourage everybody to visit our website, look at the calendar, follow us on social media, and that way you'll be able to know what's going on. The Touchstone always has a lot of in-depth information about upcoming events and opportunities. And I encourage you to read them, because many of you were surprised that I was staying on last week when I announced it during the service, but there had been 2 articles about it in the Touchstone. So just saying, important stuff gets communicated there. Now, if you have news to share or submit, please send it in by the 20th of each month for the next touchstone. And if you have news and notes, we have changed the email address that you should be using. So please use communication@HInsdaleUnitarian.org. The old office email is mainly reserved for building and scheduling issues at this time. If you're new or a visitor here today and would like to receive our regular communications, you can leave your information in the chat box or click the contact button on our website. After the service today, everybody's going to be invited to stay for a brief virtual coffee hour. We split into chat rooms and you can respond to the message, you can get to know new people, or you can just catch up on our shared lives, which are just still so far apart, even as we celebrate all the vaccinations that are happening. Your staff is still working from home until everybody there gets vaccinated. So, and our phone system just doesn't work the way it's supposed to all the time. So the best way to reach any of us is via email or look up my cell phone on the website. Now, a little later in the service, we'll hold a space of prayer and meditation. If you or someone you know is in need of support, please do let us know. You can type your intention in all caps in the chat box. You can contact me via email or cell phone. And because this pandemic is still dragging on, if you need help getting groceries, if some emergency arises, please do contact us. We have an emergency relief fund to support our members during this time. Thanks today to Linda Carlin for being our worship associate, for Dennis Sejut, who's going to be doing our opening music, for Jamie and Jean and Suzanne and all the people who are offering their testimonies today in support of our annual pledge drive. Now here comes our initial song, Here Comes the Sun.
Hi, everyone. This week on our faithful journey, we will highlight our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and learn a lesson from Superman Christopher Reeve. After a fall from a horse, Reeve went from being an active, athletic man who portrayed Superman on screen to losing the ability to move his body below his neck. Reeve went on to live a different kind of heroism as an advocate for research and support to help people with spinal cord injuries. He spoke to Congress and many other audiences. He founded the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, which funds research on spinal cord injuries and offers grants to improve the lives of people who have been disabled. Christopher Reeve's story serves as a springboard to issues of inclusion as we are guided to reflect on the ways to affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person. When we broaden our thinking about what constitutes ability and disability, we also learn that each of us has the capacity to use our personal agency to do good in the world, no matter how we are abled. So, based off this story and our discussion this week, the signpost for our faithful path will be include everyone. How can you include others? Have a great week.
The things that we do in this church in terms of educating youth to run the world one day are just phenomenal. And I really truly believe it takes a village to raise your child. And this group of people is very authentic and genuine in wanting to help our youth.
You know, everybody listens to everybody's ideas, and that's really not something that happens, I think, in too many places, especially for high school students. But it's just something about the openness and you know, the willingness to listen that really makes at least the youth group very special.
We start introducing the concept of the spirit of love and mystery that some people call God, and we use that term in our very young RE program, not in the context of doctrine or dogma or this is the way it is, but always in the context of wonder and questioning.
The little kids they need some concrete things to hold on to, and so we're able to give them spirit play or a way to wrestle with ideas and questions that make sense to them at their age level. We don't tell our kids how things work, we just tell them that there are deeper truths and that they can help find it because they are spiritual beings as well.
Children are loved and accepted and respected here. They do lots of activities with youth from around the district, so they get to know other UUs.
Especially as high school students, everything moves really fast in just throughout the week. And there's, you know, so much happening in such a short period of time that when we finally come here, everything, I don't want to say slows down, but it feels very anchored.
You know, Pam, our director of programs, is so amazing, and she creates such a wonderfully welcoming space for our kids and our youth. And the fact that we have, I think we have 21 senior youth in our senior youth program right now, which is just astounding. There are churches that are 3 times our size that don't have that many kids in their youth program. And I think it's because we really offer our kids a place where they are seen and they're heard and they can hang out together and they can explore things. And this is a safe place to be them, and they know the adults here respect them.
Hi everyone, it's great to be here with you today, and I'm sharing my stage with Joe St. Cross.
Hi everyone.
We're sitting here super close together and without masks because Joe's been fully vaccinated, so we both feel pretty safe to talk to you a little bit today about why we support UCH and its mission, and why it's so important on this Pledge Sunday to talk about the things that are important to us. So Joe's here because he has been a great partner to me and to our kids and our youth in the RE program.
Hi everyone. As Pam said, I've been supporting the RE program for over 20 years. I've taught in various groups, but most of you probably know that I've been for the past 12 years the high school youth director. And during that time, Pam and I have worked extremely closely at conferences, at service trips, retreats, you know, bridging ceremonies, youth Sunday services, which all are part of the program that we provide to educate and train our youth to be responsible adults in a society that needs their enthusiasm and activism.
So Joe, what would you say is like a highlight of your 12 years?
There are many highlights, Pam, but I would probably point out when you and I took a group of 14 youth to a service trip in Detroit to work with Cass Community Social Services. And our youth would experience vastly different socioeconomic groups, vastly different education groups, and lifestyles that they'd only read about at best. It was a wonderful trip. We did a lot of different things in a lot of different areas. And yeah.
Do you remember when they were, when they made up their island?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we had worked all day. I mean, worked really hard all day. And so we were just like chilling out after dinner, and a group of them were sitting around the big dining room table, and they started talking about how they were going to buy a private island, and everybody was going to live on this island. And it was hilarious. I mean, it got a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
Which we're not going to share with you, because what happens in youth group stays in youth group. But what was notable about their living together on this island is that they weren't building themselves big mansions with built-in pools, and they weren't expecting to have high-paying jobs or anything like that, but they were working out having sustainable food, how they were going to have solar power and wind power, and of course, you know, completely silly add-ons. But what was awesome about it is they were taking their UU principles, the things that were important to them, the things that they really believed, and they were all equals on the island, and there was no racism, and there was no unfair or unjust laws in how they were going to live. And for them to take those things that we think are important, and for them to think of a world where they're living that hold those things up, was pretty incredible.
Yes. So, as we speak to you today, guys, if you've ever attended a youth service or listened to a youth during a coffee hour or talked to them, you see the gamut from the seriousness of our teenagers to the silliness of our teenagers. But within their own social groups, they are idealistic. They wish and will work for a better society. They will try to implement the ideas that they've learned through this church, through the adults that interact with them in this church, through the other youth and children that they work with in this church. So Pam and I believe so sincerely that the support of our RE program is imperative to the support of our future.
Thanks for supporting UCH with your time and your talent and your treasure. It is beyond immeasurable.
Yeah, it has been an honor to be a youth director. Thank you again.
It's been an honor to work with this guy.
Yeah.
All right, thanks everybody.
Bye.
Have a great week.
It is so good to be gathering together, acknowledging that we truly are on a faithful journey. And it is my privilege to be with you, especially in this time, to tell you what you may already know or are learning about the work of the Unitarian Universalist Prison Ministry of Illinois, where I've been privileged to serve as the director and minister since January of 2020. And of course, the predecessor was the Reverend Kay Mooney, who many of you know. And such an honor and a privilege to be taught by her and moving forward. So today's offering, and you're sharing the plate with the Unitarian Universalist Prison Ministry of Illinois, whose mission is to equip Unitarian Universalists in Illinois to transform institutions and support people who have been harmed by the prison industrial complex. We have a number of activities and events that we engage in, including inside ministry. I'm facilitating circles, peace circles inside the Cook County Jail men's and women's side, as well as at Logan Women's Correctional Illinois Prison. We also engage in advocacy efforts that are led by and centered around the voices of those who are directly impacted, either those who are recently released or also coming from the inside. We also facilitate through the Church of the Larger Fellowships Illinois Ambassador Program, pen pal relationships. And we also educate folks in a number of different ways, including trainings around the prison industrial complex, conversations around abolition, conversations around how to support one another through the callings that have come up through Amen to Uprisings from the General Assembly last year with the Unitarian Universalist Association. We also care about mutual aid and directly helping those, and especially during the COVID-19 pandemic inside Unitarian Universalists who are locked up in Illinois prisons. We made sure that they received money in their commissary to help purchase any protective equipment, sanitary items, or simply as a way to have money to connect with their loved ones. So we care deeply about the work we do. We are a statewide organization, and many of you are involved, for which I am intensely grateful. And so I'm going to invite Dave to tell you a little more about the logistics of how to give virtually today.
Thank you, Allison. To contribute to UUPMI, you can go to the church's website, www.HInsdaleUnitarian.org, and click on the donate button on the homepage. You can indicate in that space that your payment is to UUPMI. We are sharing our plate with UUPMI every Sunday this month, but why not make a note and send your payment today while you're thinking about it? You can also send a check to the church, and remember to write UUPMI in the memo section. On behalf of UUPMI and the church, thank you for everyone's ongoing financial support.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Williams, a member of the Unitarian Church of Hinsdale Board of Trustees. The good works of our faith community extend like ripples into the world, whether through our social justice work, the liberal education of our community's children, or the ongoing enlightenment of ourselves and others, and your support is vital to the work we do in the world. Please go to our website, www.HinsdaleUnitarian.org, and click the donate button to make a secure contribution today. Please be sure to use the drop-down menu in the donation form to designate where you want your contribution applied. Now, please join me in saying our offering words together. This church is made up of all of us. It is what we learn together, the work we do together, and the fun we have together. It is what we share with one another, with the people around us, and with all the world. Thank you.
Garden Prayer by Reverend David M. Horst. Early in the morning, before the children are awake and while the grass is still dewy, I like to walk in my garden. It's my garden, only because it shares the same small plot of land my family and I inhabit. The garden does not really belong to me. I belong to it, at least for the short time I'm here. Today I'm still in my slippers and have my first cup of coffee in hand. Much of what grows had been planted 2 or 3 homeowners ago. Some I've planted since our arrival. But if they belong to anyone or anything, the plants and flowering trees I come to see and smell, viburnum, dogwood, magnolia, and crabapple, belong to the sun and rain and soil. These living things are a beauty not of my making, though surely made of my desire. At the moment, the rose bushes are in full burst of red and perfume. The hydrangeas are sure to open their moppy heads as soon as the sun falls upon them. The weeding-looking globe thistles are turning lovely blue and spiky. The foxglove, however, rules the garden. Its central stalk is 5 feet high and heavy with pink, scoop-shaped blossoms with charming freckles inside. I am awed by the abundance. I'd intended to walk the garden simply to observe and wonder. Ah, but there's a weed that must be pulled, a stray stem that needs to be pruned, a blossom drooping and fading that should be snipped. So I set down my coffee cup on the back porch, grab a small pail, and go to work. I end up with muddy hands, wet slippers, and a pail full of weeds and trimmings. Why can't I simply observe and wonder? Won't the beauty of my small garden world survive without me? I step back to the porch to retrieve my coffee, now cold, stamp the dew off my slippers, and take one look back at the garden before I return into the house. The garden is no more beautiful now than when I first arrived. My weed pulling, pruning, and snipping haven't really improved the garden, nor made that much of a difference as far as I know. It's like prayer. The words I speak don't really change anything, but I know they change me. Thus ends the reading.
We are changed by the experiences we have. We are changed by the people we know, the time we spend in gardens and wild spaces. We are changed by the communities in which we engage and offer our time and talent. So I offer you now, in a time of prayer, a time of quiet, calm space, I invite you to breathe in the fresh air of spring, hopefully for some cracked windows that are there today. Breathe out worries, anxiety, anything clutching at your heart. Feel your own heart beating. Rest in just a moment of silence. I want to share with you a prayer for this church by the Reverend Nancy Schaefer. May each one among us have skin that longs to touch other skin, fingertips that long for other fingertips, or whole hands, or even arms, bodies that want to stand next to other bodies, not alone, while singing and bending and stirring soup. May the ones whose skin doesn't cry out for other skin wish that it did, and so teach it, so that no one stands alone, no one aches and does not say so. May our doors be so open that it is drafty inside, and people sometimes shout because noises without also come within. May those sheltered here sometimes cry all at once, letting tear water clean what words themselves cannot. In silent times, may everyone present here hear everyone else breathing, and know this is not separate from how the world breathes all night. May we always have enough room for those who want to come in, and may those who cherish this church be so glad that they cannot stop speaking, stop asking, stop inviting. And may that crowding itself be a gladness as we keep adding rooms. May we notice each one who is new and invite them to stay. And may our list of names for the holy not ever be finished. And may we hear God chuckling with us as we find still more. I invite you to hold the stillness of this moment, allow it to fill the whole of your being, and carry it, keeping it alive and vibrant throughout the coming week.
morning, everyone. Like some others, I've been given an assignment by Rev Pam in 400 words or less. Write a reflection of how I feel engaged with UCH and why it's important to me. I'm cursing a bit, though I won't relay those exact words to her. However, in a short span of writing and thinking, I've come to one of the main reasons I've stayed engaged with UCH over years of membership. This church tackles difficult issues facing us and challenges me to look at uncomfortable truths. Like an assignment I start out not wanting to complete, I am asked to reflect how I might be part of the problem and how I might be part of the solution. I'm challenged to consider whether I'm truly my best self. And this question is so hard. But there's also a twist. This church allows me to do better or to simply walk away. And if I walk away, I can come back another day. This acceptance of personal responsibility is key. UCH is a place where we are encouraged to grow and take action to make the world a better place for all beings. Yet, it is also a place where we can be quiet when we need to be and welcome back into a community when we're ready to be part of something bigger than ourselves. This church pushes us to grow into better human beings, but allows for the inevitable growing pains of becoming better. I first walked into our church building when my older son was almost 4. He's 24 years old now. Over the years, my involvement in UCH has fluctuated. Still, I've had enriching experiences teaching in UCH's religious education program, serving on the Board of Education, editing the Touchstone, being part of the communications committee, helping with hospitality, volunteering at the Fair Trade table, and most recently, participating in our church's soul work. There are members of this church who have done much more than I have over the years, and some who have done less. Still, come Sunday morning, in our church building or on our Zoom screens, there is a place for each person who needs or wants to be engaged in something beyond the personal and yet so vital to the personal. This church welcomed me the first time I entered it and has welcomed me again and again on my path of becoming.
Thank you, Linda. I'm so grateful that even if you weren't happy about it, you still offered such a beautiful testimony to your experience in this church. I want to start out now with a reading by the Jane Repka that's called Just Regular Folks, because it reminds me of our church. She writes, in the 1930s, of course, times were tough. During that period, members of our church were accustomed to pledging either 25 cents a week, 50 cents, or $1 a week. And in the 1929-30 church year, all the church members fulfilled their pledges of $13 for the year, or $26, or $52. But as the Depression continued, our ledger books began to show tiny numbers at the bottom of each page: 5 cents, $2, $12, and then a little S, 5 cents short of the pledge, $12 short. Just what one would expect during the Depression. But picture this. Picture more numbers appearing at the bottom of the ledger: $4, 80 cents, $7, 30 cents. And after these numbers were the tiny letter O, $4 over the pledge, 80 cents over. There's no evidence in the record of a special appeal from the Board of Trustees, no traces of public discussion, only the quiet generosity of the people. For every pledge that had to fall short, one of many generous people overpaid to compensate. The history of our church tells us that Gandhi was never a member, and Mother Teresa never belonged either. King Midas never showed up, nor Bill Gates for that matter. Just regular folks, like us. They dedicated their babies, they worshiped, They reached out to do their part in the world, and they tended one another. They kept the place going, and they tried to live their best lives. Thus ends the reading. They tried to live their best lives, just like so many of us today. Now, the Great Depression was a terrible time in our country, a time with stories and legends of great suffering, when communities either supported one another or broke down and broke apart. Many towns simply disappeared. And here we are, in our own time of, what's that word? Unprecedented challenge. A pandemic has held the world in its clutches for over a year now, causing economic and emotional, physical, so many layers of hardship for so many people. So this time last year, your leaders were scrambling. We knew that something bad was coming, but no one knew the ultimate effect on the church, what that was going to be. But instead of waiting and trying to fix whatever catastrophe happened, they sat and they forecasted. They applied for a payroll protection plan, the grant from the government. They created a 2-tiered budget, one of a hopeful case and one of a less hopeful case scenario, to be ready from the fallout from COVID-19. Liz Reyes, Darren Howard, David May, Bob Daniel Wayman, Mike Pabian, Steve Trout, and all the other members of the Finance Committee and the Board of Trustees had hard discussions to be responsible for this church community, to make sure it survived. So far, it looks like the intense planning paid off. And while we don't know what the continued fallout of the pandemic is going to be, right now, the church is in pretty good condition. It's in such solid shape that the board voted to restore my pay to full time for the second half of the year. My wife and I are really grateful for that. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who brought their skill and their commitment. Thank you to everyone who raised their pledge a little bit or a lot. This church has revealed itself to be strong and a sustainable ecosystem. Now, I'd chosen the garden theme for today because gardening has been on my mind. Karen and I moved out to the country last summer to Bull Valley, which is just outside of Woodstock, and we have 3.5 acres and are in the midst of creating our very first real garden together. Some of you know that my wife, besides being a minister, is also a tremendous project planner. So we have a plan for our garden. So far, we've built 2 raised beds and we have 8 more yet to go. And she has mapped out every square foot of what those beds should look like. The taller plants need to be planted at the north, the short ones at the south, and she's diligently researched which plants like being next to each other and which have to be kept kind of at a distance. We've even got some seedlings started in the basement, so ready to go as soon as Mother Earth is ready to let us. We have a wide range of vegetables with different varieties for different growing conditions to give us the best shot at having an abundant harvest. Now, this is a far cry from the garden I had when my kids were small. Then we dig up an area, get a bunch of plants from Kmart, and put them all in and let it go. And there would be some weeding until we went on vacation in July. But when we got back to a widely overgrown thicket of plants, we basically give up and harvest what we could in August. It was a garden, and it was generous, but sustainable could not be a word to describe it. Now, there are all kinds of gardens, as so many members of our church know way better than I. And the best gardens are a balance of plants that work well together to enrich the soil, even as they flower and produce fruit. The master gardeners, of which UCH has many, understand that the give and take of a garden, the way you have to invest in the soil with compost and manure and winter cover crops in order to continue producing good fruit year after year. A good garden will give you back more than you invest for a very long time, but eventually the soil will become depleted and there will be dwindling returns. Much like a church environment, there is a rich loam of experience and generosity that can keep this church thriving. So when some areas struggle, others can pick up the slack. But for the long haul health of the church, each and every member must be committed, offering the gifts that they have for the well-being of the whole. Each of us contributes when we can, and we're not afraid to step back or ask for help when times become tough. It makes for a healthy whole. We've heard some testimonials from church members today sharing why this faith is important to them. And we have a couple more yet to go. So I'm going to introduce Ron Solberg here, who has served on too many church committees to even list, to share his own story of the Unitarian Church of HInsdale.
Thank you, Pam. A few years ago, my wife and I visited Dyersville, Iowa, a place of fertile soil, traditional values, and simple pleasures. It's a place where a baseball diamond was carved from a cornfield to make a movie about pursuing one's dreams, no matter the effort. Dyersville, you may recall, was the scene for the 1989 movie Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. A place where the greatest baseball players of all time came to play their game. Now, hopefully you won't mind my drawing a comparison between that Field of Dreams and this, our very favorite place in all the world. A place for me, my family, for 50 years. Yes, it was 1971 when we signed our church's membership book. In my mind's eye, I imagine gazing at a late 19th century Chicago suburban landscape, seeing our first minister and coach, William Channing Gannett, emerge to clear the land and create our Unitarian Church of Hinsdale, home to our hopes, dreams, and aspirations. As Reverend Gannon hailed from Unitarianism's Mecca, Boston, the place giving birth to some of the greatest religious thinkers and abolitionists in our country's history, this church boasts an impressive pedigree. Reverend Gannett had a profound effect on what we were to become through his personal philosophy, defined in his celebrated essay, The House Beautiful, that explores the notion of what makes a house and a church a home. But of course, it's been so much more than a series of illustrious ministers and leaders, inspiring programs, and this House Beautiful. For our family, it's been about you, our fellow team members, who have been our muses for 5 decades. My wife, Norma, our 2 sons, and I thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ron. That was beautiful. I appreciate it. And now we're going to have a reflection from Casey, Edgen, and AJ.
Hi there, I am Casey Edgen, and some of the things that I have enjoyed about being a part of the UCH community is trying new things, being addicted to styrofoam recycling, and that we get a sense of community, support, and patience even when our schedule and our lives get in the way.
I'm Len Edgen, and what I love about Unitarian Universalism is a open-ended, open-minded journey through spirituality and support every step of the way.
My name is AJ, and RE at church, I like meeting new friends and RE Zoom calls with Pam and the other kids. This video was made by the Edgen Clan Productions.
That was fabulous. Thank you. And Lenny was there too with Casey and AJ. Thanks so much for your reflection. As you've heard, there is so much to be proud of. There's hands-on justice work done by all the folks in our social justice circles, which include our animal ministry team, our green sanctuary folks, the racial equity team, the PADS team, the prison ministry folks working on elder patrol, and all the folks who escort women to the clinic each week, and all the pen pals who write to people who are imprisoned. There are so many ways that people live out our principles and uphold the worth and dignity of every person in our church. On top of that, there's the amazing religious education program, which we've already heard a lot about. But the adult education includes small groups, book clubs, men club, the soul work offerings, and so many things which have had to be put on hold, which I trust, like desert plants after a rain, will spring back to life once again when we can gather. And then there's our community circle, who's trying to figure out how to be virtually welcoming in pandemic times, while still providing new UU classes and supporting groups like the Wise Elders. And there's our amazing worship team who have done such an amazing job of pivoting and helping to figure out how to live stream after we never did that before. They're the folks who make sure our buildings, our finances, and our leadership are strong and healthy and sustainable. Just like any good garden, so many tenders who are putting their hands into the earth, who are making sure that this community of people yields far into the future. So today, we kick off our pledge drive, and I invite you to consider how you can help our garden be abundantly fruitful in its gifts to our members, to the world, and back to yourself again. We ask that you don't think about what you have left over, what you can spare on this one more thing and making the church one more thing on their list, but that you recognize the unique place this church occupies and the unique gifts that it gives back to the world. It's a place that feeds spirits and minds and bodies, where giving is actually getting, and where we grow together from our shared energy. This church has been around for 151 years, but we are just on the threshold of finding out how much more we can do, not only bouncing back, but leaping forward into an amazing future with only our imaginations to limit the tremendous impact we can have on our world. As gardeners of the Spirit, you hold our future in your gloved hands. Amen, and blessed be.
In this one of many possible worlds, all for the best or some bizarre test. It is what it is, and whatever. Time is still the infinite jest. The arrow flies when you dream. The hours tick away, the cells take away. The watchmaker keeps to his schemes. The hours tick away, they tick away. The measure of a life is a measure of love and respect. So hard to earn, so easily burned. The measure of a life is a measure of love and respect. So hard to earn, so easily burned. In the fullness of time, a garden to nurture and protect. In the rising set of the sun, till the stars go spinning, spinning round the night. Oh, it is what it is, and forever. Each moment a memory in flight. The arrow flies while you breathe. The hours tick away, the cells tick away. The watchmaker is time up his sleeve. The hours tick away, they tick away. The measure of a life is a measure of love and respect. So hard to earn, so easily burned. Let the fullness of time, a garden to nurture and protect. The treasure of a life is a measure of love and respect. The way you live, the gifts that you give, and the fullness future disappears into memory, with only a moment between. Forever dwells in that moment. Hope is what remains to be seen. Forever dwells in that moment. Hope is what remains to be seen.
Communion with Earth and Sky by Reverend Stephen Schick. Early spring awakens memories of a deeper cold and hopes of a warmer wetness, sprouting seeds and budding branches. Gray trees on gray sky screen eyes from all that lies waiting, the color of a million flowers, the feathers of migrating songbirds, the blossoming smiles of friends. Soon we will no longer look to the night stars to guide us. Soon the path will be lit and our task certain. In the warming days we will plant our future, uprooting useless skeletons of last year's harvest, breaking the clods of indifference, carefully pulling the weeds of neglect so that roots can stretch. Before the harvest moon rises and we wait again, images of still distant summer days awaken thoughts of a time when all is done that can be done. Then the harvest, then the transformation, then the baking, then the bread. All we know and love is in this cycle. All that has been or will be is in this loaf. Take it, break it, give thanks, and pass it on. Thus ends the reading.
we extinguish this flame, but not the light of its truth, the warmth of this community, nor the fire of our commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with all the world.
That was so beautiful. Thank you, Jamie. He outdid himself this week. We all have to say thank you. I think he worked twice as hard since we didn't have him last week. Our closing reading is Community Means Strength by Starhawk. We are all longing to go home to some place we have never been, a place half remembered, half envisioned, we can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere, there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere, a circle of hands will open to receive us, and eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing, a circle of friends. Somewhere we can be free. Thus ends the reading. Thank you all today. This has been a beautiful and amazing service. I know it ran a little bit long, but it's so great to hear have so many voices added in and so much beautiful production that Jamie did for us. We are going to end, I think, with a welcome video, which was a portion of the video that Ashley and David created just as a reminder of why we're all here today. So if you want to wait till after that, we will still do our regular virtual coffee hour. Thank you, everybody.
It's like a little mini family reunion every Sunday to see everybody. One of the best parts is greeting people, shaking their hands and saying, "You're welcome here."
It's a smaller church. Some people I've known who've joined our church have joined because we are a smaller community, and we are intentional about not only helping each other and supporting each other, but it gives us a little more direction within the community for things that we can do here.
It's billed as a home, and it's family. It's everything. It's the environment, it's the people, it's the messages, the history. The history of the church is incredible.
It's been here for a very long time. It's very historic as we are preparing for our 150th anniversary. It gives us a sense of history in place.
I love that members that have been here for a long time embrace the new members in a way that's not cliquish, that everyone believes that everybody has something to share.
The church makes a great effort to be welcoming to anyone, no matter what they look like, no matter where they're from, no matter what their first language, no matter who they love.
You'll have an interesting conversation that somebody will approach you and ask you about yourself, and you'll be invited back. So not in a pushy way, but in a you're welcome way.
And I think the Unitarian Church has a lot to offer the world in terms of being accepting and understanding, or at least trying to understand how other people feel about things.
I think our growing edge is to be learning about ourselves so that we can learn about ways how to be more welcoming to other people, what other people might need, because I might know what I need, but I might not be able to even imagine. So if I do more work internally, then I can imagine being welcoming to more people.